Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the 2022 Beef Lunch and Learn series. We want to thank Miss Ashley Perlerin for putting this annual event on. This is the third year. After the program is over, we have a poll. So just be sure to stick around and do the poll evaluation. It's very important. So I'm going to introduce myself and we'll go and get started. My name is Brandon Hawkins. I'm the Agriculture Natural Resource Agent in Bowie County in the Art and Test region with Purview. And our today's guest speaker is Mr. Clint Taylor. He's the beef technician at PV, and he's going to talk about how to handle your herd. Okay, you go ahead and put your presentation up.
It's up.
Okay, it's already up.
Okay.
Just a habit I always say. So I used to say, to say, put it up. Because sometimes we'll have some glitches and stuff. So, but you can go ahead and get started, Mr. Taylor. And good to have you.
Thank you. As Brandon said, my name is Clint Taylor. I've worked for the Texas A&M University system for 11 years now. I'm going on my 12th year. Transferred to Prairie View this past year, been here around 3 months, and I'm enjoying it very much so. I'm a technician too, and like Brandon said, the beef cattle research manager. So yeah, we're going to talk today about managing stress levels in cattle. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. Why should you use low stress methods? This is a question I ask a lot of people because they think that it just begins with working them and ends there. And actually it doesn't. It begins when you wake up in the morning until the time you go to bed at night. If you have a full-on operation, that is how it has to be. You need to implement a low stress protocol in your operation because it helps in several different ways, and we'll cover all of them. One is ethically, it's just a better practice. Altogether, at the end of the day, when you finish and you notice that how easy things were and how well they work out and all the things that you gain by implementing one, you notice that at the end of the day, it's way better. It's easier on you, your cattle, and your pocketbook. Over time, it will be economically beneficial. You can see that when you get your cows up and you implement a low stress method and notice that you're not spending the money that you thought you were going to because you're managing everything. You get them up for, insecticides or whatever, trying to control your flies, fly stress, feeding, just physical exams, palpations, whatever. When you get them up and you implement this low stress process over time, it does economically benefit you because it's cheaper to be out there a shorter amount of time. And the more you do it, it's going to get easier and it'll be less time taken to do it. Makes a better experience for both cattle and owners. This kind of goes with what I said a minute ago. The more you do it, the easier it's going to get, the less time you're going to spend doing it because it just flies by so quick. And when you're not frustrated, your cattle don't feed off of that. They notice that you're not frustrated and they're not frustrated. And when you're finished, you're like, man, that went really good. That went really easy. And it's because it was a good experience and you want that. And sometimes it's not always going to be like that. In reality, you're not always going to have a good experience. I understand that. I don't always have them. But if you have the mindset like I do, that when you go into it, mistakes are going to happen. I'm not saying you can't get mad about them. You can't get irritated with them, but know that they're going to happen and be okay with it. It just take the situations as they come. Safer on both cattle and people. The more time you take and the better care you take, the slower you go, the more attention you pay to what you're doing, of course it's going to be safer. If you're in a frantic hurry and you're running back and forth and you can't keep up with what you're doing, that's when mistakes are really made. That's when the big ones are made. You stick yourself with a needle or you get stressed out, you stress your cattle out. One little thing can kind of do the snowball effect in this. So Implementing a low stress method is just way safer on you and your cattle. Over time, it will improve overall herd health. Later on in the presentation, you'll hear me say this a lot. You're going to get your cattle up a lot. I highly recommend that you do it a lot. And that way they get to know you. But the more you get them up for small things, putting fly spray or treating, elements, or just doing preg checks, physical exams, you got the veterinarian out there, you're getting ready to AI, whatever it may be. Pull them up for it, walk them through, keep it low stress, keep it low key. Over time, it will improve your herd health because you're getting them up for the small things. Better meat quality for the consumer. Now, this is a big deal. A lot of you may have already heard of BQA, Beef Quality Assurance. There is a website you can go to, and I will have the link up later in the presentation. It is bqa.org. There you can get training on low stress methods, several other options there, but it trains you a lot and it teaches you a lot. It's very informative. I highly recommend that you go there, check that out. And it tells you how implementing a low stress method in your cattle operation can be better for meat quality and the consumer. Topics covered in managing stress levels today will be, it starts with you. And we'll get into that pretty good, because the main thing I hear a lot is, what are my cows doing? Why are they doing this? Why are they like this? And a lot of times it's an answer people don't want to hear. I didn't want to hear it. It's probably you. It's not necessarily always them. Practice makes perfect. This goes with what I said a minute ago. You really want to practice what you're doing, implement your protocols, make sure that you're very methodical in what you do, because at the end of the day, they're creatures of habit, just like you are. They're going to look forward to what you're doing, and they're going to try to anticipate what you're going to want them to do. So, practice it. Practice makes perfect. Acclimation is key, and this could not be more true. In reality, like myself, I don't own a huge place. I don't own a ton of cattle. I have a fairly decent sized place. I lease a few other places. But the thing is, with my cattle, when I load them up and I haul them to a different place, I acclimate them not only to me, but me at this place. It's very stressful, even though you may not notice it on them. When they show up at a new place, it can be very stressful on them. So make sure that they get used to you in this location. So acclimation is key. Habitual routines. Like I said a second ago, cattle are creatures of habit, just like we are. Everything that we do with them, they store it in their memory bank. If you go out there every day and you look at them and for the first few times you dump some feed out for them, they get used to that. They expect it. When they see you, they don't necessarily see the fact that they're going to be stressed. When they see you, they may see that, hey, this is the person that feeds me. So I look for the idea of them seeing me and not being stressed out. They are interested in what I'm doing. They want to come to me. Slow, steady, and easy. You are going to hear me say this a lot. I cannot stress these three things enough. You have to go slow. You have to keep a steady amount of pressure and be easy on yourself and the cattle. Okay. When you're hard on yourself, they feed off that energy. They know that it's there. You have to be easy on yourself. Forgive yourself for mistakes. They're going to happen. I have to do it all the time. And sometimes it's easier said than done. Believe me, if anyone knows it, it's me. Chute side manner. There's a lot of people, I bring this up, they have no idea what I'm talking about. This is the biggest thing with me. If you ever work cattle with me, you will find this out. How you act at the chute determines how that cow's going to act from now on. If they come into that chute and you're loud and you're laughing and you're talking and joking and jumping around, that is extremely stressful on them. Extremely stressful. That's what they remember. If they get up there and balk just a little bit and you grab a hot shot and you hold it down on them, they remember that. That's what they remember. That's the stressful point. That's why they don't want to get in the chute. And we'll cover all of that as well. But chute side manner is probably the biggest topic that I will cover. That's where you can either make or break your operation on low stress handling. Stress triggers. We'll cover not all of the stress triggers because there's so many to cover. But the main ones that I know of, that I've noticed with myself mainly and other people when they are trying to use low stress methods when they're working their cattle. There's some stress triggers people don't know about, and there's the same old ones that everyone knows about, but we're going to cover all those hopefully. It starts with you. Like I said a minute ago, it starts when you wake up in the morning. If you wake up, for lack of better words, on the wrong side of the bed, if you're in a bad mood for whatever reason, when you go out there and you're already irritated at the situation or whatever may have happened, they feed off of that. When you pin them up and you're irritated and you're short with everything they do, they know that. They feel it. If you don't believe me, try it one time. They can feed off of anything. So it always starts with you. If you go with a positive attitude, with the attitude that, you know what, mistakes are going to happen today, that's okay. I'm prepared for what I think they may be. If they happen, that's fine. We'll deal with them. If they don't, great. The day's over with. Get to know them. Get to know your cattle. Honestly, if you have 500 head, yeah, you're not going to get to know all of them. I get that. I understand that. But get to know the herd. The herd will talk to you. They will tell you what's wrong. If there's a sick one, if there's a group of cattle in the herd that just don't act right, they will let you know. They just watch them, get to know them. Let them know you. That's just equally as important. They need to know you. They need to know your routine. They need to know what you're going to do. So let them know you. Cattle react to you. Again, this goes with how you present yourself when you go into work on them. If you're stressed out, irritated, they're going to feed off that. They're going to be stressed out. They're going to be irritated. So they react to you always. Slow and steady is key. Like I said earlier, I'm going to say this a lot. Slow and steady is key. You get in a hurry, mistakes happen. You keep a mindset that I'm not going to run through this, but I'm going to apply the pressure I need to get the job done, whether it be slow or quick, not fast. You will see that things work out a lot easier for you. Slow and steady is key. Practice makes perfect. Again, the more you do things, the more you go over things, the more times you bring them up, you work them. Practice makes perfect. This is no exception to the rule, working cattle. The more you do it, the more you practice your protocol, the easier it's going to get, the quicker it's going to go. It's all around a good idea to practice things. The more you work them, the easier it gets. I know you're going to hear me say this a few times too. The more you bring them up, the more you put them in that chute. Sometimes I actually get them up and don't do a dang thing with them. I just run them through the chute. I walk them through as easy as they want to go at their own speed. I don't put pressure on them. They get used to it. My cows now, when I get them up, they automatically start walking to the holding pens. We were all laughing about it the other day. I get them up, I feed them, and they all start splitting themselves off and going into the holding pens. Just because I pin them up, let them sit there for a few minutes, open the gates, and let them back out. They know as soon as they get through, they get to go back out. Medicating, exams, breedings, and vaccinations. These are all good reasons that you can get them up. You can all get them up separately for these reasons, knowing that you're going to have to get them up each individual time. Now, I know if you own a big operation, this is not feasible. I get that. I do. But for the most part, everyone that I speak to is a small-time cattle worker like myself. I own roughly about 60 head, not many. So it's a lot easier for me because they're broken up. That's not a Prairie View. At Prairie View, I have a few more that I manage out here. But when you're able to move them around and stuff and break them up into smaller groups, then you can, each time bring them up. But working 400 or 500 head, I know that's not feasible, but still getting them up at every opportunity and walking them through and just showing them that you're not there to hurt them. You're not there to stress them out. You're there to work them, to help yourself. Acclimation is key. Excuse me. Again, if you're a small timer like myself, what I consider a small timer, I lease a few pastures and they're a few miles apart. Actually, one's an hour and a half away from me. I ship my cattle out there and I drop them off and I do not leave them. I come back. I stay there. I work them the day I drop them off. I pin them up. I walk them through so that they know this is what's going to happen when we're here. Now, I know I can't be there every day. I know that. But when I do show up and they do see me, sometimes I'll feed them, I'll pin them, and I'll turn them out. Sometimes I'll feed them, I'll pin them, run them through the chute, turn them out. They know that they need to come up, they will be caught, but they don't know what's going to happen after that. Acclimate them to you, acclimate them to the place. The place is new, you're not, but how you're going to work them is. So acclimate them to that. Acclimation will lower stress levels in cattle. And it's proven, like the more you let them get used to things, the easier it gets, stress levels drop. It's just a way better idea. I don't know, a lot of you probably have heard of Dr. Ron Gill. I've done a lot of work with him. I've watched a lot of his stuff. I can't brag about him enough. He's a great guy. He will tell you acclimation is key. And when you move them, work them. That's him. That's what he likes to do. I covered that a little early, but again, that is the best option you have is when you move them, work them. If you're working the cattle or it's calving season or weaning, you need to acclimate them to your process of doing things. If you're going to go out there and catch the calf and tag it, weigh it, all this stuff, the cows will know this. And every year they're either going to get to the point where they're trying to hide their baby from you, or they're okay with it because they know that you're not going to hurt them. You're going to turn them loose. Well, unfortunately, I have some on the side of they don't like me to touch their babies, which is fine, but keep it as low stress as possible. It's stressful enough them having a baby at their side and you showing up. If you go out there trying to be the cowboy and trying to flank them and all that, it's not going to work out for you or the cow, and it could be a disaster. So try to always think of the best way to implement low stress methods. And for me, when I do it, if I'm tagging a calf, usually what I like to do is bring them up, mom and calf, have them in a pen and separate the calf from the mom and let her see and smell everything that's happening. And anybody that's worked cattle with me, my number one rule is you don't break the plane. You do not touch that cow. She might get close to you. She might smell of you, but you don't touch her. You do not break that plane. You don't break that rule, because then you're giving her a reason to do something extra. But calving is a very stressful time that people don't realize, because a lot of times you naturally just let it happen out in the pasture. But everyone knows after the cow calves, you have to deal with that calf eventually. And that's a good time to implement low stress methods on your calves. Let them get used to you. Calves get used to you. I had a calf walk up to me the other day for the first time here and let me pet it. That was insane to me, because the way they acted when I first got here, there was no way that was going to happen. But they're used to me. They get me. I get them. It really does work. Habitual routines. Cattle are creatures of habit, just like we are. They see things and they do things just like we do. I show up every day. My cattle know I'm probably not going to feed them, but there's a chance I might. So they come up and they all see me. They all talk to me, and they beller at me. And I make sure everybody's up. They're standing there and they're acting normal. And either I'm going to feed them at that point or I'm going to let them go. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But they are creatures of habit, just like we are. And you can get them to do quite a bit. Whether you feed them, pin them, and walk them through the chute. Again, like I said, I can go down there and feed my cattle and pin them up in a big pen, and they'll start sorting themselves because I've done it so often. And if you can get them to where they start lining up because they know as soon as it's over with, they get to go back home. How stressful is that? It's not. They get it. As soon as we're done, we get to go home. So when you feed them, lock them up. Just sit there for a minute. Watch them eat. Don't rush them eating. Don't push them around. Just stand there and let it be for a few minutes. Patience is one of the hardest things. Patience with cattle you have to have patience. When cattle see you, they should be comfortable. I took this picture here on this background a couple of weeks back of the PV cattle out here. These are my replacement heifers. And I love these girls. They are so cool. But I was sitting there, I was filling up a mineral feeder, and all of them came up because they're nosy and they want to see what I'm doing. They're hoping I'm going to feed them, which I didn't. But I was like, the picture looks a lot closer. I like my personal space, and they know that. I like them to stay at least 10 to 20 feet away from me at all times. And I was sitting there and I snapped this picture. But they're completely comfortable with me. None of them are ready to bolt. They're wondering if I'm going to feed. Let them be comfortable with you. Now, there is a limit to how comfortable you want them to be with you. You don't want them on top of you, but you do want them okay being around you. I cannot stress this enough. A lot of people don't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. Manage you. Manage yourself before you try to manage your cattle. I'm probably one of the worst ones, probably on here ever. When things don't go my way, I don't like it. And everyone knows it. But over time, I've noticed when I manage that and I manage my emotions and I manage myself when I'm around them, the reaction that they have to me and what I'm trying to do with them is phenomenal. It's really good. And once you find that moment, it's like that aha moment when you're standing there and you do get very upset, but you're like, you know what? That's okay. It was destined to happen either way, and I'm okay with it. And then you let it go. You can see how that would have been a disaster, but because you thought that way, everything turned out great. Manage yourself. It's a very important part. Slow, steady, and easy. Again, here we go. Move slow. Keep steady amounts of pressure on them. And be easy on yourself. Be easy on the cattle. When I say that, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is take it easy. Don't beat yourself up for simple mistakes. They're going to happen. They're animals. You're human. It's going to happen. When you're gathering them, this is a good point. When you're out in the pasture and you're gathering cattle, this is as close as you're going to be. If you're doing it slow and steady, this is as close as you're going to be to them in a natural environment where they're not going to hide their ailment or their illness or what have you. When they're around all of the herd, so they feel comfortable, they know they're headed in the right direction, keep your eyes on them. This is where you're going to catch one with a bad udder or limping, or this is their natural environment. They feel safe because they're in a herd setting. Don't run them. You're pushing them. You're gathering them. This is the time to get to know them from an onlooker standpoint. You want to see what's going on with them. This is where I usually catch most of the things wrong with my cattle, is when we're gathering them. When you're pushing them, this is another one that I cannot stress enough. When you're pushing cattle up, everybody thinks that it needs to be 100 miles an hour. It doesn't. I don't care if it takes 2 hours to get them up. Usually all mine come to feed. It's just as easy. But again, it's the title of cowboy. Everybody wants to be a cowboy and wants to push and hoop and holler, and I don't play that. I don't do that. I like to take it slow, steady, and easy. No mistakes. If they happen, I'm okay with it, but I prefer to go slow, steady, and easy. When you're pinning, low stress methods, a lot of people think it's confined to just pinning them or working them, and that couldn't be further from the truth. It starts with you. It's you. That is your decision every day. When you wake up, you're fixing to make your day. However you look at it, however you act around your animals, that sets the tone right there. So when you're pinning them, don't get irritated. They're not going to want to be pinned unless you're feeding them. That's why it's always easy to throw a little bit of feed out, but it's not always an option that you have, and I understand that. So sometimes you do have to push them. Well, if you're pushing them or pinning them, don't make it stressful. Don't make it stressful. Try not to. Try to make it as easy as possible. When you're working them, again, this is a very important part when you're doing this. And my biggest thing is if you're in a hurry, again, mistakes happen. As a technician, I've been around cattle and veterinarians all my life, giving shots. And when you're flustered, you're in a hurry, this is where you stick yourself with the needle. And when you do that, you get upset. The cattle feed off that. They want out of the chute. Go slow. Slow down. Think about what you're doing. It'll all be okay. Low stress does not mean low pressure. I've said here and I've preached, and I still preach to this day about low stress methods. Do not confuse that with low pressure. you may be pushing one into a working pen, and you're going to have to apply a lot more pressure to that one than you would a group of 10. Because a group of 10 in a herd setting, they're going to go together. But when you cut one out, you're going to have to apply some pressure. And I mean pressure. You got to stay with them and keep them moving, or they're going to turn back and try to go through you or over you or what have you. But Dr. Ron Gill, he even says this a lot. If you go to beef.tamu.edu, there's a lot of YouTube videos on there. And Dr. Ron Gill teaches you a lot of things that you can use or implement in your everyday processes to work cattle. And you will hear the man say a lot, low stress does not mean low pressure, because it doesn't. You need to be calm, you need to be cool, be collected, but also at the same token, you can apply all the pressure you need to get them to move. Chute side manner. This is my favorite topic because a lot of people don't think about it. This is where I'm very particular about who I have around my cattle. This is what makes them. And you can see in this picture I took, this was a class that for vet students, third-year vet students for brucellosis vaccinations. And when I brought them there, I really liked the process that they had and the veterinarians had. They did a really good job. They were really good to my cattle. And my biggest thing is I try to limit the people around it. I limit the noise, try to limit everything, because this is a long lasting impression you're making on this heifer here in this chute. This is what she's going to remember. So every time when she gets up there and she balks at going in the chute, this is why. It's because past experiences. So make sure your chute side manner is on point, please. Again, I limit the number of persons that I have around my chute at all time. If you have 30 people standing around the chute and they're all talking, people are going to talk. It's just going to happen. Whether you're talking low or whispering, they hear it, they understand it. And then you might have somebody there that's never been in the setting and they're really nervous and they're really worked up. Guess what? The cow's feeding off that. Heifer's feeding off that. Whatever's feeding off that. So you really need to pay attention to the people that you have around the chute, because just because you're there doesn't mean the cattle are only feeding off of you. They're feeding off of everyone around the chute. So keep that in mind. Keep the noise at a minimum. Anyone that's worked cattle with me knows, do not like loud noises around my cows. I don't like hooping, hollering, cracking whips. I don't like any of that. I like it to be calm. I like it to be quiet. And I like to get them in and out as quick as possible. Keep it as positive of an experience as you can for both cattle and people. You've heard me say this quite a bit. Take it easy on yourself. Take it easy on them. If you go in there with that mindset that everything will be okay, whether bad things happen or not, it'll be a lot easier on you. I promise. You're only human. They are only animals. At the end of the day, this could not ring more true. At the end of the day, you are human. Mistakes will be made. They are animals. They don't understand everything you want. You can't talk to them. They can't talk to you. That's part of the reason why I like cows so much. But they are animals. Forgive them. Know that they're wanting to do what you want them to do so they can be done with it. But also know that you're human. Mistakes are made. Stress triggers. Again, I'm not going to be able to cover every stress trigger that there is out there, but these are the main ones that I notice in every operation that I show up at. These are the things that really, really set the cattle off out there. Number one is loud noises. Cattle don't like loud noises. I don't care what anybody says. You want to make a situation very tough, start making a lot of noise. And they'll get confused, stressed, and it just goes south from there. Unfamiliar surroundings. This is why I talk about acclimation. Anytime they're in an unfamiliar surrounding, acclimate them to this. This is a huge stress trigger a lot of people don't know about, because when they move them, they drop them off and they move on. This is extremely stressful, especially if you have cattle with calves at their side. It's stressful because they don't know where they could be safe or not. So, tools of persuasion. I'm just as guilty as anyone else with this. Okay. You're down there, it's hot, you're trying to get them in the chute. And sometimes cows have bad past experiences. They balk at the chute and they don't move. And I understand you can't always not use a hot shot. The problem with this is people think it's a first choice. It should be the last resort to bump them with it to get them forward. I'm not saying don't use them. At all costs, try not to. Okay. Once you open that door, there's no closing it. You've just made that a bad experience on this cow. So your tools of persuasion being hot shots, whips, whatever it may be, I'm not saying you can't use them. There may be times you have to and don't have a choice. Don't let it be a first option. Let it be the last resort. Okay. Separation from calves or the herd. There's a huge stress trigger. This goes without saying. Anytime you pull a calf from a cow, she's not going to be happy. It causes immense stress on the mama. So make sure that you know that you're doing the best you can to minimize that stress level whenever you're separating them. Again, I like them to stay in direct contact, maybe separated by a gate for my safety, so that you can properly tag the calf, assess everything, weigh it if you need to. But you don't have to worry about her hurting you, but she can see, smell, even lick the calf if she needs to. It's right there next to her. And I know she may act stressed, but that is the least amount of stress that you can cause in this situation where you have to put hands on this calf. So highly recommend that. The unknown. I know that's a broad term, but anything unknown we don't like, except we're more complex. We have the ability to know that it's unknown, and we could have a scientific mindset to, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to know what this is about. I'm going to understand it. Or there's people like me that some things you're just not going to know, and you have to be okay with it. Cattle are not that complex. They're going to look at it. They don't understand it. They want away from it. Okay. The unknown is very scary to them. It is very stressful to them. Let them get to know the unknown. If they don't know you, let them get to know you. If they don't know the place that they're in, let them get to know the place. If they don't know the working pins, let them get to know the working pins. The unknown is a huge stress trigger on cattle. If you want to further your knowledge on low stress cattle management, I mentioned it earlier. You can go to www.bqa.org. You can do all of your beef quality assurance training there. It's a very good place. I highly recommend going there and checking it out. They have some really informational videos there, even tutorials. They teach you how to implement certain practices. I highly recommend bqa.org, and you can get all your training done there as well. This is my contact information. I work out here at Prairie View. You can email me. You can call my office anytime you need to know anything. I don't know everything. I'm still learning every day. That's why I love my job so much. But if you need to get a hold of me, there it is. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. I enjoyed the presentation. That's something that you normally don't get to hear on presentations about, keeping calm around your livestock. We always talk about the business side and, feed and nutrition, but we know about how to handle our livestock. And that's very important because it can be dangerous. I dealt with some cows that were a little bit wild. We just had that one wild cattle, you got to be careful, but it's bad when you have a lot of them because it's just not used to being around people. So that's a very good topic that a lot of producers need to keep in consideration, and even specialists handling livestock. But we're going to open it up to some questions for Mr. Taylor. So shoot them out. Any question you may have for him. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat. A wonderful presentation. That's what Mary Thurton said. I'm going to look and see if we have any questions here.
Mr. Taylor, I have a question for you. When you're in the pen with the cattle, what do you recommend for just a pole or a flag or one of those rattlers to give yourself some separation between them? Because
that's a very good question. with me, I don't use anything. Matter of fact, most of the students that I teach and most of the people that follow me out there, I tell them to put their hands in their pockets. You yourself are a device. Where you step, where you stand, where you move, they watch that. Every one of them do, whether you think they do or not. Sometimes, again, I get it. It doesn't go as planned. If you had to use anything, flags or rattle paddles is what I call them. Those are usually pretty safe. Like, they get their attention, but you don't necessarily have to touch them with it. But again, that's kind of more on the last resort. That's a tool of persuasion is what I call it. I usually just try to use myself as a device to move them where I need them to go.
Okay, we have another question from Pamela Hodge. Should I pin my cattle the night prior to working them?
Again, this is a good question. I've done this. Absolutely. If you think that would be the best way to acclimate them to the situation, if they have water, they have shade, stuff like that. Oh, I've had to pin them several times overnight, just to be sure that I had them up first thing in the morning. A lot of people have asked me a similar question. Is it okay if I do this? Will it cause a lot of stress? Again, when you pin them, there's always going to be stress. You're not going to get away from it. You want to minimize it. That's the idea. And if they're laying down out there in the holding pen and they have water and they have their babies or whatnot, and they're not really stressed out about being there, they just want to go out to the pasture. Absolutely. I would recommend that.
Okay, going through the chat. I think Angela Morris said she enjoyed your presentation. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
I will go ahead and throw you a question there since everybody's questions coming in a little slow. What is your ideal at the research forum with the livestock that we have? What is your goal you have set for yourself for this year?
This year, honestly, I'm new to this whole situation, so I'm trying to really get to know everything out here. So far, I've really enjoyed it. What I would like to do is improve our genetics. One, okay. Maybe get show quality going. Maybe even start a show team. Maybe it's not given, that's a if, but first we have to get the genetics. We have to get a protocol in place, and these things all take time. And that's my plan. That's what I really would like to do. Again, it's just going to take some time, I believe. This next year, I really hope to get some good genetics in and get some breeding done, and maybe we have a good crop of calves on the ground next year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mostly talking about like maybe have breeds for maybe like you do the goat giveaway. Hopefully you have something with cattle for forage showing. Okay,
yes,
that's good.
Absolutely. Yeah, but again, these are not givens that may not happen. I don't know, but these are things I would really like to look forward to. I really want to get the students involved. I really want them to come out and be able to interact with the cattle at a safe distance, but also get comfortable around them, get to know them, learn the techniques that they need to know to be out there. We are an agricultural school, so these students really need the hands-on or the ability to be out there with them. So, anything that we can do to further their knowledge, I'm completely on board for.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
And again, to add to it, the other link that I was talking about so that you can watch some of the YouTube videos with Dr. Ron Gill, I highly recommend that. The guy is extremely gifted. He has so much experience. It's insane. Go to beef.tamu.edu and you'll find all that you need to know there. Watch some of his videos, go through some of his tutorials. He's a really interesting guy. He's very cool.
Okay. We have a question coming in from Brad Johnson. Mr. Taylor, what are your genetics of the cow herd? What breeds are you wanting to use?
It's a good question. Right now, what we have is a Beefmaster cross, which is, I really like them. They look really good. What I would like to do is get more on the heavier beef side, maybe throw some Angus in there, maybe even maybe throw some Charolais. I'm not real sure. I got to talk to a few other people about that. But there's some other opportunities as well, good opportunities to involve some students in, like maybe doing a breeding program with a ranch that has Wagyu. So, for meat sciences and whatnot. So there's a lot of possibilities that we're considering right now. I'm very excited about maybe getting to do the Wagyu thing. So hopefully we do, but I'll always stick to more on the beef influence, maybe Hereford, Charolais, Angus, Beef Master. You know, it'll all be around there, Brahman. But yeah.
Let's see. I think he's adding. Let's see. And then he added on how many cows in a herd. I think he's asking that too.
Like in general, honestly, it doesn't matter as long as there's more than one or two there. That if you're asking about the PV herd, is that what he was asking?
Yeah. Yes. He said.
Oh,
yes.
okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. So in the PV herd right now, we have 67 cows in the spring herd, 20 calves. In the fall herd, we have 16 cows, no calves there right now. And in my replacements, I have 17 that will be ready this upcoming year. I have 6 heifer calves that will not be ready until next year for replacements. And yeah, that's what I've got right now. And 2 bulls, beef masters. Any
other questions?
Hi, I have a question. I'm Pam Hodge. Do you have any recommendations on how, when it's time to separate your bull from the herd, how to do so without, with minimum stress for your bull?
You know what? That is one of the best questions I think I've ever gotten. That is extremely important. We focus so much on cattle and calves that people forget about how to handle their bulls. And because they're bulls, sometimes people are a little more hesitant to work them or move them. And honestly, bulls for me are a lot easier because for the most part, they're lazier. They don't want to fight you. They don't want to hurt you. They just want to go lay around and eat grass and do their job. For me, I bring them up. Usually after I bring the bulls up, put them in with the herd, we leave them 60 days or so. And then we pull them out at the 60-day mark. When I bring them up with the herd, I feed like always, pull them out, and I just walk them around and separate them. Again, fortunately, we select our bulls, so they're really gentle, very docile. So it's not too hard to work them, but I have been in situations where actually I've owned a bull before where he just didn't like people in general. And with him, I more or less had to use myself as bait sometimes to pin him, but I highly recommend not to put yourself in those situations. But for my bull, it's 60 days, pull him out with the herd, just cut him with the gates and put him in his own pasture. And he just hangs out there until the next go around. But
Do you always need to add, do you need to put a steer with him? Is he gonna be okay by himself? I mean,
yeah, this is again, this is a good question. We put our bull with another one. We have 2 bulls, like I said. They are herd animals naturally. They don't like being by themselves, so I think part of the reason that our guys are so good with being out there is because they have a friend, so to speak, out there. We keep our bulls pinned off to the corner by themselves in a pretty good sized lot. They hang out there the majority of the year, and for about 60 days out of the year, they go in with the cows. We also use them for cleanup this year after our artificial insemination program. But this year, we probably won't focus too much on AI. This year, we're just trying to get some more calves on the ground. So we'll probably do a lot more live cover this year. But for those guys, yeah, absolutely. If you leave them by themselves, they're more likely to want to get out and go with the herd because they are naturally herd animals. So I do recommend maybe keeping a steer, another bull with them, or even if you have that old barren cow that is just a family member at this point that you really like, you don't want to get rid of, throw her out there with them, just to have somebody out there.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there, when you're pinning bulls together, is there an age where you probably should not pin them? Say, for example, like if you just bought a 18-month-old bull and you're sticking them with a 4 or 5-year-old, is there any cautions there that you need to watch out for?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, that's a good question. at the end of the day, they're animals, and testosterone levels between bulls, whether they're young or old, are going to be there, and they're going to fight for dominance. Of course, the young guy's going to think he's better than the old guy, and the old guy's going to beat him with experience more than most likely. But the thing is, when I introduce them to one another, usually the younger bull, I don't put them in together right away. I usually quarantine them. That's the main thing. Is if you just bought them, I wouldn't throw them in with anything. They set off by themselves for X amount of weeks, whatever protocol you want to instill. Again, you'll find all that information you need to know on bqa.org. But you really want to maybe put them side by side and acclimate them, pin them in two separate pens where they can't get to each other, but they are separated, and let them get used to each other's smell. And they're going to try to fight, and they may try to tear down the pen. At that point, you may not be able to acclimate them together. You just have to assess it as the situation goes on. But when I bring them in together, usually I do that. I'll put one in one pen and one in the other, and just kind of let them sit there and get acclimated to each other for a couple of days, and then maybe ease them together. And that usually works pretty well. They're going to fight either way. They're going to try to establish the dominance. That's going to happen, but just try to do it very easily and low stress as possible.
Okay, any more questions? I don't think we have anything in the chat box. Okay. Well, Mr. Taylor, you can go ahead and put your email in the chat box once again for those that may have questions that may come up. And we have the poll up. We have 5 minutes to go ahead and do the poll. And we want to thank Mr. Taylor for spending some time out and doing this presentation for us. I think it's a very good topic that normally don't get discussed very often. We want to thank Ashley Perlman for putting this series on for the third time in a row this year. We also want to thank Dr. Bunch for his support of Continuous Beef series, Lunch and Learn series.